All right, so we're live.
Cool. Sounds good.
So I'll just start we have 0 viewers right now, but people will jump in hopefully. So I'll just get started with my first question, which is one of my 2 viewers now. Okay, great. It's my grandfather, Ralph Biderman. Thank you
Cool.
for being in the stream. um, and so what I wanted to ask you first was I tweeted a couple months ago. Um, Polyfactual is like the Salesforce of prediction markets. Nobody knows what they do, but they run the world. So, if if you could explain what Polyfactual, which is your company, actually does, and what you do for the ecosystem, that would be great.
Sure. So polyfactual. So we do a lot of things. So we started as a streaming kind of content platform, where basically, we launched a coin on Pump.Fun, and then basically became like kind of a streaming hub. So we invited some guests on. Like our first big guest was Domer, who's like a legendary trader in the
Yeah.
space. Then we talked to a few other people. We talked to Gondor. We interview protocols and all sorts of stuff. The other thing that we do is we have a trading terminal. So we have a trading terminal built for Polymarket, where you can kind of make trades through us, and we have like some extra stuff. So like you can, so we have like an automated market making tool, which allows you to kind of like auto provide liquidity. And then we have like an AI deep research tool, and then we have and then the final thing that we just built is like a geopolitical tracker. So if you're tracking like the conflict with Iran, you can go to this fax base, and you can kind of see like recent flight patterns, where like weird thermal activity is popping up, etc. So it's really cool. So basically, we do a whole bunch of stuff, but primarily what we do is our content streaming. Kind of like this.
Yeah. What do you think? So, a lot of the stuff you're talking about, these are very saturated market categories right now. You see a lot of competitors in the space. What does your product have over the other products?
I think the thing that our product has is the auto liquidity provision. So like for market making, I've seen a couple other people do this, but I think we do it really well. Essentially the problem with market making right now on Polymarket is that it's all manual, right? You have to manually put in the limit orders. You have to kind of provide liquidity. You have to go back and you have to recheck if things have moved, if the midpoint has moved. With us, that happens all automatically. So we regularly fetch the price of the event that you're trading. Either on the no side or the yes side. At various intervals. Right now we have I think less than 30-second intervals that we're able to do it, and then we auto adjust your orders. So that's kind of our one of the products that I think we developed, which is still. I think we were also the first ones to do it, but it's still pretty underdeveloped. I mean, there's not a lot of other people doing that.
Yeah. So how are you? So at your homepage right here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but
Oh
it
yeah.
says AI powered market intelligence is your tagline. So how are you integrating AI into your products right now?
Yeah, so we have our custom LLM, which is integrated into pretty much all of our products. The so it's integrated into the terminal. We have a really cool tool, which is like a news feed. And as you're scrolling through the news feed, and I actually think this is going to be a more of a trend. I think you're going to see more people doing this. Is like creating tools that tie prediction markets directly into the news. So basically for us, you're scrolling through this news feed, you're seeing the headlines, and then on each kind of article we attach a potential prediction markets that you can trade. And then our AI will assess like the probability of those events, like what the market sentiment is. So we have like so we categorize it into positive, negative, neutral. So whether the article is good for the market or bad for the market, we have our AI kind of like assess that as you're scrolling through. Now that's on facts.trade, but that's how we tie it into that. But it's
If you
also
think
tied
about
into. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering for that tool, where you're looking about how does this specific publication potentially affect the market price? It's not. something that's like stocks, where if, let's say, you're trading stock and then there's a story that comes out in the Wall Street Journal and suddenly there's just some really bad public relations stuff going on for this company, other people are going to see that news story and it's going to cause the stock price of the company to fall. But prediction markets, it's not, you're not trading on public sentiment, you're trading on actual facts and probabilities. So um, you'd presume that unless it's actually new data, if it's just new analyses that people are seeing, most likely that shouldn't affect the market price at all because people aren't going to be changing their models based on it, right?
So you do see a little bit of sentiment. So, like for instance, I think you're seeing more and more of it. So I think you're seeing like headlines kind of like affect prediction markets more and more. And I think that's because they're scaling. You didn't used to see it as much, I don't think. But like for instance, like and you're even seeing fake headlines affect prediction markets. So one of the things that I've been really tracking recently is like there's a lot of posts on X, which will give like like the infamous one was the Netanyahu market, right? When like basically there was a rumor I think a few weeks ago where Netanyahu was, maybe ill or incapacitated or something like that. It's completely unverified, but because it caught storm over X, um, you know, it actually affected the market in a huge way. I think there was like a massive price swing on the Netanyahu out by end of March market. So you do see this more and more, and you do see these headlines able to kind of manipulate markets more and more.
Do you
I think
think
it's a growing category.
do you think traders who are, let's say they're advanced market makers and they have these very advanced predictive models, do you think that if they are confident that this news story is not actually providing any new information, or that this news story shouldn't actually affect the true probability of this event happening, do you think traders who react against the news story, so if the news story comes out, traders bet yes, if they react and then bet no, do you think those traders are going to be profitable, or is that going to be a new category of traders that comes?
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. I think narrative traders are like I actually think that you could separate it into two types of people: people that trade the narrative, and then people that trade the resolution. There's some people that I think, like for instance, the other day, and you can trade on the no side as well, right? Like you could take a short position almost on like a inflated story, which would be a great strategy. Or you could try and capitalize on the hype, but capitalizing on like the, like for instance with that Netanyahu market, you know, uh, you know, I think the people that made the most money were probably the people who were spreading the rumor because they were able to kind of like buy ahead of time
They rug
and
pull.
maybe yeah, and maybe like pump it and then and sell out. But I think like for people that aren't like manipulators or insiders, I think that the most obvious strategy is just take a short position, just buy no. I think on the Iran. Oh man, what are these markets? So there's a bunch of markets like will the U.S. strike Iran? And almost every Friday, there's someone coming out with like a story saying like it's going to be this weekend. I bought a bunch of short positions on the no side, just over the previous weekends, and made some money just by playing that, just by recognizing that pattern.
So you think this is going to be a major class of traders? Do you think that it is bad for the market's calibration that this is a thing, the narrative trading?
I think that the manipulation part is kind of not great, right? Like I don't think I think that I've been seeing, Polymarket and Kelshi and how they've been handling this. I think that Kelshi might be doing a better job right now, in terms of just handling the manipulation, right? Because if you get someone posting a bunch of AI slop content, it gets like 100,000 to a million impressions on X, circulates around, and then people are dumping their money into these markets, and yeah, a lot of times it's a rug pull. I think that needs to be reined in. But I think narrative trading is here to stay. I think it's all part of the prediction market game. But yeah, regulatory wise, I can see Polymarket and Kalshi. They're both. It's interesting to see their language because they're both kind of positioning themselves for a potential democratic takeover in the United States. And right now it's like it's a question of who's doing that better, right? Who's taking care of the insiders? Who's taking care of the manipulators? Who's really kind of reining it in? So in preparation for that.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. I'd like to talk a bit more about your what you're saying with the AI. So, part of what your AI is doing, from what I understand, is that you actually have parts of your AI that are making real world forecasting predictions, right?
Yes.
So, well, first of all, I hope you don't need to be a commodities trading advisor, or what they call it. But how did you train your AI to make accurate forecasting decisions?
Yeah, so our AI, so we started with kind of just like a wrapper, just like a basic wrapper of like I think it was like a couple of these existing AI models. What we do, and again, the AI is still pretty new, and we're still kind of experimenting it with it. But what we do is we simply kind of, we've hooked into a bunch of different exchanges. I think we're currently integrated with like 15 other different projects. And when people make queries on those projects, we kind of collect the data, we store the data, and then we use that to kind of better inform the model. Right now, it is getting better. Like I remember when I was using it at first, it was like it would just kind of give very generic answers about things. But surprisingly, it is actually getting better at making predictions. And I think one of the ways you can see, and we even use it to kind of like now kind of inform people on strategies. So if you go to our most recent product, FactSpace, which is like the geopolitical tracking tool, it'll actually give you like a recommendation list of strategies to do, and they're actually pretty good. Right, I was surprised. Like, it's not like super insightful strategies yet, but like they're good strategies, right? It's like short oil, right? Which I think is actually a really good idea. I think shorting oil right now would be good. So it's I mean that's kind of an insight into the deep research AI. It's an evolving tool. I think it'll get better with time, but I don't think it's at the point where it can like predict the future just quite yet. Right now, it's a very informed trader, I guess you could say,
Yeah,
right?
I'm looking right now at the prediction arena, which is an Arcada Labs project, and as we can see, or there's also like a predict bench or something,
Yep.
forecast bench. Let me share this tab. Um, it's not. I think the human super forecasters are still scoring significantly better than the AIs on this, and I think the best AIs so far have been developed by specialized labs such as Mantic, which actually beat. I think did they beat most human forecasters in the Metaculus fall tournament, but I think that the so this is I remember before they were all losing a ton of money. I don't know if this is if you buy with them or if you counter them, but how are you training your AI to be better at forecasting than these large AI labs that are training their own forecasting models?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still kind of trying to figure that out. I mean, right now we're kind of just in like a data collection period, right? So we have so the main reason why people use our AI is because we're subsidizing it. So normally you would have to pay for these kind of integrations.
Yeah.
With us, we're subsidizing it purely to just kind of collect data on what's being queried. So that's kind of the tool with the AI, but we're not at a point where we're kind of you know trying to predict the future with it yet. And I actually do think it's a bit of a ways off for that. Like
See, I'm looking at your site right now. You have a token that you charge per prompt.
for the main site, yes, but if you want to use the API, it's free. So, if you wanted to integrate this into your protocol or your AI agent or, whatever you're kind of building, there's no charge for that. You contact me, I'll give you some free credits, and you can basically get a subsidized model. Where otherwise, I think you'd have to pay like a $30 subscription or something like that.
Do you think
Um,
that? doing a tokenized payment system kind of limits trust with your users?
No, I don't. I haven't found that. I found that I think it's interesting, right? Because this gets into a whole conversation about like whether or not it's good to have a token in your project or not. Because a lot of times you have to balance the interests of the token holders with, you know, the interests of users. So we created that little feature on our website so that we could kind of appease our token holders, right? Because they needed a way to like use the token, provide utility and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the point of that. So it does build a little bit of friction. I haven't found that users are too discouraged by it though. Um, and I think that's because we offered the free API version. Um, so that's kind of my takeaway. But it's a good question because I could speak a lot about this if you want. But there's a lot of trade-offs when you launch a project with a token versus a project without a token.
What do you? I'm wondering. I'm just on your website here. What's alpha? It says alpha access required. Is this a new feature that you're gonna be making?
So Alpha Access was a feature that we built really early on, and in order to use it, you need to have a certain amount of polyfactual tokens. But basically, what it is it's just a streamlined version of our kind of that deep research AI that you saw. It's just a streamlined version of that. But so instead of kind of searching, we have markets that you hover over, and then it'll give you analysis on that. And we built this early on as a way to kind of stabilize our token, right? So like we like early on, our strategy was okay. What are some features that we can build that'll appease the token holders, that'll stabilize the token? And alpha feature was one. This kind of deep AI research tool was another one where you could kind of burn Polyfax token to use it. And there's a few more on the site, kind of peppered in there. But since then, we've kind of since then we've created a whole bunch of other stuff. So a lot of these features are very early features that we built.
What features are you hoping to build in the future, or what do you think are undersaturated market categories that you'd like to grow into?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I can definitely say what the oversaturated market categories are. And I do think that the front end terminal space is really saturated, and just going to get more and more saturated, which is the space that we're in. And it's essentially like my theory on Polymarket is essentially it's going to be like the Shopify for prediction markets, where basically they provide like the back end tool, the derivative creation, the liquidity, and then everyone else just creates their own front end. I think that an undersaturated space that's still undersaturated is providing tools for people to make front ends. So, like, right now, there's a few, we did an interview with one product called what are they called? Predexon, which does like all the API work, right? So, like, if you're using Polymarket's API, it's very complicated. It's not exactly like easy to set this thing up. So Predixon makes it really easy to kind of like set up an API. But I think you could go further than that, right? I think you could actually create like a whole tool that allows you to spin up a front end for Polymarket real fast, just like Shopify, right? Faster than an AI agent could code it up for you, etc. And
Yeah,
I think that that's an under kind of like an underexposed category that not enough people are looking at, right? The picks and shovels play for the front ends. Um, you know, I don't think I mean, you could always just create your own unique prediction market. I've always been afraid of that because I think Polymarket and Kalshi will probably get to it eventually, but I'm probably wrong. I mean, there's probably like there's probably an angle to create like a niche prediction market, right? Like on something that they wouldn't think about.
yeah, I mean possibly, but also there's like hundreds of offshore exchanges right now that have literally zero volume. And even if they're still marketing them, because people just don't trust them, because a lot of them have a token or a lot of them are doing other kind of shady stuff. And I think really the only path to launching a successful exchange right now is to get regulated, and that requires a lot of initial capital. So
Mhm.
that's just my stance. Over here, what I'm sharing now, I don't know if you can see this. This was a terminal me and my friend made for manifold markets for the Super Bowl. We had a special Super Bowl mode, but then we also have a regular mode. So you can put in your API key, you can select a manifold market, you have this sort of polymarket style trading thing, but our main feature, we have an order book here. Um, we have I have to put in my API key to do it, but we have fast keyboard shortcuts. 100B is to bet yes, 100S is to bet no. But this is just demonstrating like everyone's made a terminal, and
Mhm.
this is just one that I made, and so I think that there's going to be very little successful terminals, and I think eventually Polymarket and Kalshi are going to make their own terminal, and that's just gonna beat everyone. I don't really know, but what do you think the use is of having people make their own custom terminals? Because a lot of them, like Fireplace, are pretty customizable.
Yeah, I see. I mean, like, I think prediction markets can be kind of integrated into almost every, like, kind of like anything, right? Like, you can make a prediction market about clothing, you can make a prediction market about culture. And I think what you could do, I think like a really good thing to do would be to get people who are not like crypto people, or hard devs to kind of like spin up like almost like a Shopify store for your unique kind of prediction market area, right? So if you were like an expert on, like, let's say you're like a cultural influencer or something, maybe you want like a prediction market that you can kind of, uh, sell to your fans or something like that, so they can bet on. So while you're doing your live streams, they can go on your website, your Shopify prediction market website, and then start making bets on like some of the stuff that you're talking about. I think pretty much anyone in any category could use a prediction market front end for their own specific purposes. So that's why I think that that is kind of like an interesting thing. But the other category that I think is interesting is DeFi. I think DeFi is still overlooked. I mean, the most prominent DeFi people that I've been talking to have been working on parlays, but parlays are something that these markets could probably do as well. I think what Gondor is doing is very interesting, like lending
Yeah,
by
Mar is
collateralizing.
trading on the margin.
Yeah, trading on the margin and collateralizing your prediction market positions.
But also they might get if Kalshi starts introducing in-house margin trading, that could be pretty bad for them.
Yeah, it could be. And that's the risk with DeFi. I mean, I like, for me, I would say like it's a good category to look into. But again, like, to your point, designing a DeFi protocol is very tough. And like, I don't know if, I've designed several and they haven't worked out for various reasons.
I think a
So
lot of
yeah.
the risks with there's like hundreds of startups in the ecosystem right now, and I think a lot of them Polymarket, the intern could just decide have a bright idea and decide to vibe code something, and then that's the end of that startup when they release it natively into Polymarket or into Kalshi. And I think that can just kill so many startups when they start making more stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's a good point, because the value of I mean, the production pipeline for generating code is just getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So obviously, like, the moat of having like a well coded product is getting harder, right? So like, then it's like, okay, well, then your startup really becomes about what's your distribution look like. What's your distribution channel look like? Which is why at Polyfactual we focused on mindshare first. I mean, that's exactly why I was like, you know what, I don't even want to start with the products. I want to start with the content and the distribution, and then build the products within that framework. Which I think is, I don't know, that might be the strategy of the future with all this vibe coding stuff.
Yeah, do you think that there's still going to be a lot of these new ecosystem projects, or do you think that like none of them are going to work, and then they're all going to kind of fail, and the ecosystem is going to kind of move on, and then we'll still have these big players that'll be elevated even more? Do you think that's a reasonable scenario?
I think it's a reasonable scenario. Yeah, I mean, I think the ecosystem projects. I think there will be a few ecosystem projects that are building on top of Polymarket. I don't think there's going to be hundreds and hundreds, like there is now. I think a lot of the products that you see now are probably going to go away. They're probably going to fail. Um, you know, I, I think that's an inevitability. I mean, I was talking to a trader, Profit. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a good prediction market trader. He's like in the top percentile. And it was like my first interview actually, and he was saying that he thinks that most of the projects that you see right now in the poly market ecosystem are probably going to fall by the wayside, and that's that might be true for Kelshi as well. I'm not as familiar with Kelshi's ecosystem as poly market, but um, yeah, I mean the products that might stay are like the aggregation tools, right? Like the front ends that I think do a really good job are the ones that aggregate all the prediction markets together, so you can trade on, like opinion, you can trade on Polymarket, you can trade on Kelshi, um, and you can do it at like a really fast pace, right? Speed is everything. Um, I think synthetics is like one that is pretty cool, but yeah, no, I think it's a good point.
Yeah, I think that we're gonna see it's kind of reminding me of crypto right now a little bit when we had the ICO boom a couple years ago. Or, well, not a couple years, more than a couple years ago, and then everything kind of we might have something that happens like FTX where there was a big scandal or something. I think if that happens, it could prediction markets would be more susceptible to something like that than crypto because we already have worse PR than crypto did, just because of like Kalshi had to put up those advertisements. This is Kalshi Rule 1, we ban insider trading. Kalshi Rule 2, no death markets. They already have a really bad PR, so I think if something like FTX happens, it's probably the end of the industry, in my opinion. Um, I don't know what you
Yeah,
think about that.
well, it's interesting because prediction markets. I'll say this: I think that prediction markets right now just went through a massive hype cycle. Um, I do think it's a bit inflated, right? Like I saw the valuation for Poly Markets token, and again, like this is, I'm bullish on prediction markets. I am, but I'm just trying to keep it real. I think that like the 100 billion valuation for the token might be a little bit inflated,
Yeah,
because when you think about like the space, right? This is not going to be as big as crypto. Prediction markets are not going to scale to the same size as crypto. I mean, even though it's a market for
I think they
everything.
easily could. Yeah, I
You
disagree
think
with.
so?
Yeah,
So
I think they
okay.
just it's a better product design in my opinion because crypto, I mean, like I'm not a big crypto person because like I haven't seen, I mean we could, this is a separate debate, but I think prediction markets have a lot more use cases than crypto in the real world.
They do, and like in terms of like insurance, right? Prediction markets have like a tie in there, but the thing that I don't like about prediction markets right now is that I don't own an asset. Like that owning of the asset thing is still like really important. Like if that is
Well,
figured out,
when you buy a contract is an asset.
it is, but it's a very temporary asset. I think you're bringing up a good point. Like if you buy like a long term prediction market, like a long dated one, yeah, you're holding like an asset. I think that is a good point. But at the end of the day, like I I, I I think what I feel with crypto is like I do think people want like an asset that they can hold for years and years and years. And the thing that bothers me about prediction markets is that I just don't, like when I'm betting on U.S. strikes, I just don't feel the same sort of like utility you know, that I am when I'm holding like Bitcoin or whatever. Again, like I think you're bringing up good points, and I'm happy to debate it. But that's just my feelings right now.
What do you think is the is there like a certain bias that people have where they like, you think people just like the feeling of I own this, and having a ticker like BTC feels more real than If I don't know what the I forget how they format this year. It's like K. If it's Kalshi, it's like K NYC temp or something. For the NYC weather market. And I think so. Do you think people like the idea of like I own this asset and it feels more tangible to them than a prediction market contract, even though it's really not?
Yeah, like I think like people. I try and think about like like my brother, for instance, is like a big stock trader. He buys crypto. Um, I don't see him getting into prediction markets. I just don't see him because he's interested in like long term investment, like long term future. He's interested in like owning a piece of something. I think you could do that with prediction markets better. And I think that you bring up a good point. Like if you're betting on like a really like if you're betting on like uh like will but but the other thing with prediction markets though is that right now you're either right or you're wrong. In crypto you can be more right or more wrong. Or
Well, you
like
do have unrealized profit and loss.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You have unreal. Yeah, you do have that. Um, but it's
You
kind of
can
like
I don't really I mean the only the only way I see that it's different is that the potential cap of prediction markets is $1, so you can only go up a certain amount if you buy versus it can go to infinity. I mean, they can both fall to zero. So the only difference I think is that prediction markets have that hard cap, but otherwise I don't really see how it's different there.
yeah, they have the hard cap, and then it's also like if you lose, right? If like you end up being wrong about the token that you're buying, yeah, it's not a total loss. You know, like it's not like
A lot of the time it is if it's a rug pull.
yes, if you're betting in meme coins, like if you're doing meme coins, it's going to be a total. But like if you're holding on to like a token that's backed by equity or something like that, or like maybe it's like a legit token, there's risk, but there's still a potential that it can go up. And I think that potential, I think the binary. So I think I guess my reasoning for why I don't think it's going to be as big as equities is because the binary stuff is not there. Or the binary stuff is with prediction markets. I think that is unattractive to certain people.
I
Again,
just
all of
saw
this could get
earlier
resolved.
today there's now a new type of predict or banks are now issuing these. I guess they might not call them prediction markets, or they're like I don't know exactly what they're calling it, just bonded prediction markets or something, where instead of all or nothing, you bet on something and then you bet your principal, and then depending on how much you bet, the interest you'd get back if you're correct on the outcome of the event scales. And then also on the other side, so if let's say if it's Nvidia stays the largest company, you invest your principal. If it happens, you get your principal back plus 7%. If it doesn't, then you get
Interesting.
your principal back minus 7%. So I think there's definitely workarounds, and it's not. I don't know how much the all or nothing factor is really a limitation, because I feel like it's more for a lot of retail traders. It's the more of the dopamine hit probably from just like trading the asset.
Hmm.
Also, I think so. There's definitely workarounds. I think I don't know how real this phenomenon actually is, and I think that it's not even. It doesn't even matter that much if individual people, if for in terms of the total valuation of the asset. It doesn't matter that much if you're enticing individual people to trade, because again, we're looking at institutional adoption here, and it's institutions are not going to care about this. They're going to care about where do we have the most edge.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think like the one thing prediction markets is excellent at is hedging, right? Like if I take a bet in crypto, like if I take a leveraged position on like GMX or Hyperliquid, I can easily hedge myself by going to Polymarket and making an opposite bet on the same asset, right? Like will Bitcoin go over 60,000 or something like that? That is a like, and you can do that in the stock market as well, right? You can hedge on like what the Federal Reserve is going to say. I think that's like one of the biggest use cases of prediction markets is just hedging and insurance. Like if we're
Yeah,
looking for actual utility beyond kind of sports betting and gambling.
yeah, I agree
Um,
with that.
that's a huge market, right, in and of itself, and I think that that's going to expand. Um, and there's also workarounds, right? Like you were saying, like Trendle is a company that we interviewed. They are doing something like a prediction market. It's called an opinion market, where you can kind of bet on mind share, right? So it's who, but it's not binary, right? There's not like total loss. You can be more or less right on Trendle. So it's like a prediction market that offers that non-binary kind of buy-in. And it's like mind share on JD Vance, right? Will JD Vance have a lot of mind share? If his mind share grows, the token value grows, and you can sell back, and it kind of operates a little bit like a perp dex. So that's like one example of like a prediction market that has kind of solved some of the friction points that I see with like Polymarket and Kalshi. So yeah, I think it's a temporary solution. I mean, I think we'll see what happens. It's definitely a space that's going to grow a lot in value.
Yeah, I agree. So I wanted to know, what do you think is going to be the largest? So do you believe that hedging is going to be the largest industry? What are sorry, sub industry within prediction markets? What are others that are going to be unique use cases that are going to drive the growth of prediction markets?
I mean, I think sports right now is the one that's becoming the biggest. I tweeted out on my personal Twitter the other day, like if you're a prediction market influencer, do sports, post more on sports. I got ratioed for it, right? Like I think prediction market trader, if you're familiar with him, he
Yeah.
came into my comment section and basically said I strongly disagree with that, and I just got completely ratioed. But I still think sports is like a really interesting category, and I think that you could
Why is it?
specify.
Well, I understand it's the biggest category on Kalshi. It's
Yeah.
close to 90% of the volume, but why is it an interesting category? Because I think it's actually probably the least interesting category out of all of the prediction market things you can bet on.
I mean, I do too, but that's mostly just because I think I don't watch sports too much. Um, but I think that you could define ways in predict. I mean, there's like a lot of DraftKings influencers out there. There's a lot of but I don't know. Like I feel like there's an opportunity there. Like if this is the fastest growing category in prediction markets, why not create like exchanges and tools that kind of cater to that specific category? I
Well,
mean, like one
because
of the
it's because sports is the highest percentage of retail traders, and that's who your target audience is. It's like random people. These are the same people who are on DraftKings. They just understand the market's less. I think a lot of advanced tooling is not going to be something that they're interested in, most likely. Also,
yeah
sports has absolutely zero economic utility whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean it's so to kind of come back at you a little bit. There's one tool that did really well, and I think they're still doing pretty well, right? And it's called Sire Agent, and it's an AI agent that's specifically developed for kind of analyzing sports within the context of prediction markets. So basically, like it's a predictive AI, and basically, when I was looking at this, when I was talking to this guy, he was telling me that out of all of the we were talking about AI prediction stats, like which AI is going to be best at actually predicting the future, because sports is has so much kind of visual data that you can feed into an AI. It's actually one of the categories that I think will be the first to actually make future forecasts on like what people are doing. And I think that's just because there's so much types of, there's so many different types of data that you can kind of get from the, uh, you know, that you can kind of get into the AI to help it make forecasts. So Sire Agent is doing this, right? Sire Agent basically has an agent where they are able to kind of like forecast, help people get like an edge in sports in this way.
Okay, yeah, I mean, possibly. I just think maybe there are some tools that do well, but I think it's not really a sustainable category because I think eventually it's just going to be that these exchanges are going to have to focus more on their other markets to appease the serious institutional traders, and then if they start focusing less on the sports side, I think that DraftKings, FanDuel, other sports books are going to be able to just capture that market. I think it's not a very sustainable industry. That's my opinion, and I think it's not economically useful at all. And one of my hot takes on this is that sports markets shouldn't be listed on exchanges because they just take the credibility out of it. Is my opinion, which is a debate, but that's what
So
I
you
think.
think so 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 you think that basically like with that poly market will eventually that sports will eventually kind of decrease on poly market and Kalshi a little bit,
Yeah, I
or
think
that.
it'll take time because on Cal Street, let me pull up the stats here. Um, oh, they have dark mode now on the prediction markets dashboard. Okay, Cal Street overview. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right, Cal Street transaction or Cal Street volume by tag. So let's look at this. Cal Street volume by tag. All right, so we have sports here. Oh, there's sports. So that's the pink. So that's a huge amount of the volume if you look at that there.
Mhm.
That pink is it's gonna. I think Dustin Gauker wrote a piece a couple weeks ago on how much time it would take to have sports markets be be like 50% of the volume in a couple months, which is what Luana Lopez Lara was saying during the Calshi Research Conference. That's what she projected, but I think he concluded that it wasn't possible and that there would have to be some like huge economic changes there. But I think it will take time, but I think it's going to eventually happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said. I mean, like sports. I think that the reason why sports is trending right now, it's because that's the audience that kind of likes the binary mindset. I mean, they're used to it with DraftKings. Um, but eventually, I think as more and more markets kind of expand, you'll see more people interested in stuff like hedging and and things like that. For a while, like the top market on Poly market was the Fed, the Fed rate market. Will the Fed make cuts? And that is solely because of people hedging themselves. That's the only reason why that market got so much volume.
Yeah, I'm trying to paradigm. Okay, for context here, this is a breakdown of markets by volume right now across Polymarket and Kalshi. So sports, we have all sports markets at 335 million, which is just secondary to politics, which is 412 million. So it looks like this is the number one market right now is the Democratic presidential nominee for 28. I think that's what this UI is implying, but I think the poly market brings it down a bit, and I think that's interesting because the crypto people were probably less interested in sports than the U.S. The people on the U.S. exchange, which is Kalshi. Um, I think that the people who had their crypto wallets ready weren't expecting prediction markets to be primarily sports, and I remember when Kalshi came out, the original intention was that it wouldn't be a lot of sports markets, and they were actually not intending to have them originally, or at least not for a long time. And so I think the people who knew about prediction markets for years were the crypto people. And then when Polymarket came out, they had their crypto wallets ready. They weren't. I don't think Polymarket even had sports markets in the first batch of markets that they released. So I think that's basically why the crypto people and why Polymarket had less sports markets. I think the U.S. exchanges saw, oh, this is a new gambling thing. What do we gamble on? We gamble on sports. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think crypto people just don't like sport. They don't want to bet on sports. They want to bet on other more unique things. I don't want to bet on sports. I don't know much about sports. I don't know. I'm not like an expert on that stuff. So I think it is a very interesting category because there's so many ways to make money. I mean, like, a lot of the sports contracts are short dated, which is, I mean, those are by far the best ways to make money on Poly Market. Like, you want short dated stuff. And then also, like, there's a lot of kind of data advantages you can get, which are getting harder and harder. But like being able to get the sports data faster than someone else. I mean, there's a lot of ways. There's more ways you can get an advantage than simply crypto markets, I think. Um, so like yeah. So I think sports is like an interesting category. I think it's growing right now. I mean, you know, but we'll see. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that I think we're close to out of time here. Is I think that's a good place to leave off. If there's anything else you wanted to talk about, I have a couple minutes. Or else we can wrap this up.
Yeah, no, I guess I in terms of what you think, where do you think prediction markets are going over the next year?
Yeah, I think
For
well over the next year, I'm not sure. I think for the multi-term, the long-term vision, it's going to be $1 trillion asset class easily. I think it's going to be bigger than crypto. And I think it's going to be more of a default mechanism to hedge things. I think the insurance industry is going to be smaller because more people are going to be hedging with prediction markets. Um, in the 1 year term, I don't see a lot changing. I just think there's going to be more interesting. I don't think we're going to see a lot of innovation from Kalshi and Polymarket. They're just going to try to sustain their business, and then we're going to have ecosystem tools, not like ones to help traders make better trades. More of ones to I was talking about with 5cc Capital when Audie and Noah came on the podcast last week. Different applications or different companies that are going to expand the total addressable market of prediction markets. And I think that's what's really going to turn them into $1 trillion asset class. That's my opinion.
yeah, in terms of like different like companies that would kind of like expand the use case of prediction markets.
Yeah, that's my. I think Calcium Polymarket are not going to be doing much innovation because they're going to fear backlash. And you saw when Polymarket introduced fees last week, they had a terrible implementation, got a lot of backlash, a lot of bad PR, and so now they're trying. I think they rolled it back, and they're going to do more of a slow rollout. Um, but I think that there's going to be applications that bring prediction markets to consumers in a more efficient way than Calcium Polymarket are doing right now, even though they're going to be basically doing the same things that they're doing. And I think the ecosystem projects are really going to power it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely an interesting space. I'm personally excited to see where it goes next. And yeah, we'll be following it.
Yeah, all right. So that's all for now, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
All right, bye.
See you.